Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something called single case experimental designs, SCEDs for short.
Mhm.
Now, you might think, why focus on single cases? But think about it. How do we know if a specific teaching method works for one particular student,
Mm.
or if a therapy is helping one specific client?
Right. SEEDs are tools researchers use to rigorously study those individual situations to get real answers for specific cases.
And for you, our listeners, who want to understand how we get knowledge we can actually trust, well, this is pretty important stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We're basing this on a pretty recent review. It's from Educational Psychology Review, came out late last year. The title's a bit of a mouthful.
Ah,
Discovering internal validity threats and operational concerns in single-case experimental designs through directed acyclic graphs.
whoa, okay.
But don't worry, the core ideas, they're actually quite graspable and super important for knowing if research findings are, solid.
Exactly. So the big question we're tackling is this. Researchers use these single case studies, right? They try an intervention, they see a change. How do they know, like really know it was the intervention that caused it
Mhm.
and not just something else, some random factor?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's where these terms, internal validity threats and operational concerns, they come right into the picture.
So our mission today is basically to unpack that. How do researchers try and nail down that cause and effect?
Well, the article mentions two main strategies, things you've probably heard of. Replication,
Repeating the study.
right, and randomization.
Yeah.
Assigning things randomly to avoid bias.
Okay, those sound pretty standard. Like they should work, right? Give us a clear picture.
You'd think so. And they are powerful tools, no doubt about it. But, and this is where it gets interesting, this article makes a strong case that even with replication and randomization, well, they're not always enough. You might still not know the real cause.
Huh. Okay, so they're not foolproof.
Not entirely, and we're going to dig into why that is and look at some other ways researchers are trying to make these studies even stronger.
All right, let's start there.
Hmm.
Why is it so critical to be sure that the intervention, the thing being tested, is actually the reason for the change? What happens if we're wrong about that?
Well, put yourself in the shoes of someone using the research.
Okay.
Maybe a teacher looking for the best way to help a student or someone choosing a therapy. You're trusting that research, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If a study says, hey, this new program works wonders, but really the improvement was just the kid getting older or maybe something else happened at home,
Right.
then people waste time, energy, maybe money on something that doesn't actually do what the research claimed. It erodes trust. And worse, it means people aren't getting the help they genuinely need.
That makes total sense. We need that trustworthy evidence. Bad conclusions mean bad decisions.
Precisely. And that trust really hinges on this idea of internal validity. Confidence that the intervention and nothing else caused the outcome. The article zeroes in on two things that can mess this up. These internal validity threats and something called operational concerns.
Okay, let's break those down. Internal validity threats, operational concerns. What are we actually talking about here? What kind of gremlins can get into the works in these single case studies?
So internal validity threats are basically other explanations, other factors besides your intervention that could explain the changes you see.
Like what?
Okay, think about a student struggling with math. You start a new tutoring program, their scores go up. Great. But was it the tutoring? Or was it just that they naturally matured over those few weeks? That's a maturation threat.
Ah, okay. Just getting older, basically.
Or maybe, completely unrelated, their parents started doing math games at home. That's like an external event, another threat. It wasn't your tutoring, but it still influenced the outcome.
I see.
Operational concerns are different. They're more about how you run the study.
Logistics.
Yeah, kinda. Like, are you delivering the tutoring exactly the same way every session? Are you measuring the math scores consistently?
Yeah.
Using the same test, same condition?
Right, the things are sloppy or inconsistent.
Exactly. If your procedures drift or aren't clear, it muddies the water. You can't be sure if the change you see is because of the tutoring itself, or just because you measured things differently one day, or the tutoring wasn't quite the same. Both these things, threats and operational issues, make it harder to say, yes, the intervention worked.
That clarifies things a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so researchers know about these problems. Let's talk about the standard solutions again.
Hmm.
Replication first. How does repeating the experiment help?
Well, the basic logic is pretty straightforward. If you try the intervention, say, with several different students, or maybe the same student but in different settings, like at school and at home, or even just at different times, And you see that same pattern, the behavior changes right after the intervention starts across all these different replications.
Wow.
Well, it starts to look less likely that it was just some random fluke or some weird outside event causing it each time.
So consistency across repetitions builds confidence.
Exactly. If a therapist uses a new technique with 3 clients who have similar anxiety issues, and all 3 show improvement soon after starting it, that consistency makes a stronger case for the technique itself being effective.
Right, makes sense. But, like we hinted at, the article says replication isn't the whole story. It's not a magic bullet for internal validity. Why not? What can still go wrong even if you replicate successfully?
This is a really key point the article makes. Imagine you replicate your study perfectly. Same intervention, same positive result across, say, 5 different kids.
Okay, sounds good so far.
But what if there's some other factor, something you haven't measured or even thought about, that's also present for all 5 kids?
Ah, like what?
Let's use that reading program example again. A teacher tries it in 3 different classrooms. All show improvement, looks great for the program.
Yeah.
But what if? What if the school just started a new, quiet reading time initiative right around the same time? And that's happening in all 3 classrooms too.
Oh, right. So that initiative is also there consistently.
Exactly. So the improvement you see, it could be the program or the quiet reading time or maybe a bit of both. The replication shows the pattern is consistent, sure, but it doesn't automatically rule out a consistent confounding variable, something else that tagged along for the ride in every single case.
Okay, wow. That's subtle but really important. Replication doesn't kill off consistent alternative explanations.
Pretty much.
Okay, so what about the other big tool? Randomization. How does adding randomness help in these single case studies?
Randomization here isn't usually about assigning people to groups like in big clinical trials.
Huh.
In SCEDs, it often means randomly determining when to start the intervention for that one participant.
Okay. So not starting it at a predictable time.
Right. Or if you're comparing, say, 2 different ways of doing the intervention, you might randomly decide which one comes first.
I see.
The whole idea is to try and spread out the influence of any potential confounding factors, those other things that might affect the outcome evenly across the different parts of the study, like the baseline phase versus the intervention phase.
So you're trying to break any systematic connection between, say, time passing and the intervention starting.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You hope that by randomizing the start point, for example, you make it less likely that some naturally occurring upward trend just happens to coincide perfectly with when you decided to begin the intervention.
Trying to level the playing field between the different study phases. Make sure the only big difference is the intervention itself.
That's the goal. You're trying to neutralize predictable biases. But, and here's the catch the article points out,
There's always a but.
well, yeah. Even with randomization, especially in a single case, you can still have, random fluctuations or weird events pop up that just happen to coincide with the intervention phase by chance. It reduces the likelihood of systematic bias, but doesn't completely eliminate the possibility of chance or other unforeseen factors messing things up.
Okay. So replication helps with consistency. Randomization helps break systematic links, but neither is perfect.
Exactly.
And this is where the article brings in directed acyclic graphs,
Yep.
DAGs.
Yep, DAGs.
Sounds intimidatingly technical. Can you break that down? What are they and why are they useful here, especially if we're already doing replication and randomization?
Okay, think of a DAG as basically a flowchart for causes. It's a visual map. You draw circles or boxes for different variables like intervention, outcome, time, other factors, and then you draw arrows between them to show which things you think might cause or influence other things.
So arrow from intervention to outcome.
Right, but maybe also an arrow from time to outcome, or from other factor to outcome. The acyclic part just means the arrows only go one way in time. The outcome can't cause something that happened earlier.
Okay, so it's a visual way to map out your assumptions about what causes what.
Exactly. For SCED researchers, it's a structured way to sit down and think through all the potential pathways that could lead to the result they're measuring. It forces you to be explicit about your causal assumptions.
Makes sense, like drawing out the web of possible influences.
Precisely. And the article highlights that once you have this map, there are specific rules or algorithms you can apply to it. It's like logical analysis of the map.
Okay.
This analysis can help you see which relationships are likely causal and which ones might just look causal because of some other hidden connection, what they call non-causal pathways or backdoor paths. It helps untangle that web.
That sounds
Yeah.
Really powerful, actually. And the article says, use these even when you're already using replication and randomization.
Yes, and that's key. It's saying those methods are good, but this adds another layer.
Why is that extra layer needed if you've replicated and randomized?
Because, like we said, replication might miss a consistent confounder. And randomization might not perfectly balance everything out in this specific study just by chance.
Right.
DAGs provide a framework to proactively think through all the plausible ways the outcome could happen, including ways that have nothing to do with your intervention. It forces a more critical look before you even start. It's about identifying potential problems in the causal logic of your design.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. Can you walk me through a simple example? How would drawing a DAG actually help a researcher spot a problem they might otherwise miss in a single case study?
Sure. Let's go back to that reading intervention. The researcher sees scores improve after starting the program. Simple view. Program better scores.
The desired outcome.
Right. But now they draw a DAG, they add a node for time, like weeks into the school year. They know time can lead to improvement just through natural development, right?
Yeah.
Maturation.
Yeah, we talked about that thread.
So they draw an arrow. Time, better scores. Now, their map shows two potential paths leading to better scores, one from the program and one directly from time. The DAG makes that alternative pathway, the maturation explanation, visually explicit. It screams, hey, maybe the improvement isn't just the program, maybe time itself is playing a role. It forces the researcher to consider if their design can distinguish between those two paths.
Okay, I see it now. It makes the alternative explanations really visible and forces you to grapple with them up front.
Yeah.
So the article wants researchers to use this as like a pre-flight check.
Exactly. A way to systematically brainstorm potential validity threats and operational concerns during the design phase. By drawing the DAG, they might realize, oh, I need to measure this other factor, or maybe I need a different design structure to rule out that maturation effect. It promotes more rigorous thinking before data collection.
That makes a lot of sense.
Huh.
But like any tool, I guess DAGs aren't perfect, right? The article mentions limitations too. What are some downsides or challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a magic wand. A huge limitation is that the DAGI is only as good as the knowledge you put into it.
Meaning?
If you don't know about a potential confounding factor, you don't understand a key relationship, you won't draw it on the map. So the DAG can't help you identify a threat you didn't even consider putting in the diagram. Garbage in, garbage out, kinda.
Okay, relies heavily on the researcher's existing knowledge.
Right. Also, DAGs show potential causal links, but they don't tell you how strong those links are. You still need the actual data and statistical analysis for that. And sometimes, especially with human behavior or complex classroom stuff, the reality is just incredibly messy. There might be tons of interacting factors, feedback loops. Trying to capture all of that perfectly in one diagram can be really hard, maybe even impossible.
So it's a helpful thinking tool, makes assumptions clear, guides design, but doesn't replace careful measurement and analysis.
Exactly. It's a valuable addition to the toolkit, not a replacement for everything else.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here? After digging into this article about DAGs and SCEDs, what should we remember?
I think the core message is, look, replication and randomization are essential, foundational, but they don't automatically solve every problem with internal validity.
Right.
Adding this proactive step, using a tool like DAGs to really think through and visualize all the potential causal pathways, including the ones you don't want, adds a really important layer of rigor. It helps researchers design studies where they can be more confident that, yes, the intervention is truly what's making the difference.
So for us listening, understanding this gives us a better feel for just how careful researchers need to be, especially in areas like education or therapy where the results really matter to individuals.
It shows the ongoing effort to make sure the evidence we rely on is as solid as it can possibly be.
It really makes you appreciate the complexity behind even seemingly simple studies.
Definitely. And it kind of sparks a thought, doesn't it? You know, given how even these controlled studies can have hidden influences. Makes you wonder what other parts of life could benefit from this kind of systematic mapping of cause and effect, like when we're trying to figure out personal issues or understand why some community project worked or failed.
Thinking about all the potential arrows leading to an outcome?
Yeah, maybe just trying to visualize those connections, even informally, could give us some useful insights beyond formal research.
That's a really interesting thought to leave people with. So this has been our deep dive, looking specifically at strengthening single-case designs based on that educational psychology review article. Hopefully a good shortcut to understanding a complex but vital topic.
And as always, we're curious about what you're curious about. What other topics, other sources, maybe other research methods should we tackle in a future deep dive? Let us know.